what's really important, especially for entrepreneurs as they're scaling their business and as they're hitting the next six figures and then the next six figures, is there's some interesting things there, especially when it comes to employees.
Welcome to your Next Six Figures podcast, here to smash through that barrier and give you the business your hard work deserves. Here's your host, coach, consultant, and author, Marc Ford. On today's Next Six Figure podcast, we have a wonderful special guest and someone who has been there, done that, got the t-shirt and the duty free. Danielle Mulvey is a former flight attendant turned entrepreneur who has cracked the code on recruiting and retaining what she refers to as five-star employees, game-changing, dedicated, hardworking people who make big plays and get real consistent results. Now, never one to sell for average, Danielle has scaled several companies to over $50 million in annual revenue while spending less than 10 hours a week overseeing those operations. Her own team of trusted five-star employees provides her with the freedom to spend the rest of her working week guiding other entrepreneurs through podcasting, workshops, and community curating. In addition to running her companies and assisting other entrepreneurs, Danielle is the chief curator of the All-In Company community, which strategically advises other entrepreneurs on attracting and hiring five-star employees with, guess what? A 90% success rate. Ladies and gentlemen, Danielle Mulvey. Hi, how are you?
I'm doing fabulous. Thank you so much for having me, Mark.
It's an absolute pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure. Now, just remind us, because there's a bit of a time difference, okay? You were just before we hit record. Are you recording this in the middle of the night?
It's not the middle of the night. So I'm in Orange County, California, just south of LA, and it is 5 a.m. Pacific time.
Well, no, to me, that's the middle of the night. So seriously, nothing good happens before 6 a.m. in the morning, really. That's the way I look at it. Okay. So when it comes to employees here in the UK, we are trying, on this podcast, we are trying to help people get to the next level, get to the next sort of like six figures. And one of the things that keeps cropping up time and time again is when people start taking on employees, actually, nobody's ever really told us how to take on employees. Nobody's really told us what we're looking for, and nobody's really taught us to interview anybody. We've probably all been there. We've probably all been at that job interview where we were really awkward and got asked random questions about mushrooms and scientists and stuff like that, which made no sense at the time anyway, but we managed to get a job. And it's not until you start employing people that you suddenly realize that, hang on, where is the handbook on employing people and actually asking the right questions to get the right employee? So what is a five-star employee? What should we be looking out for?
Well, a five-star employee represents the top 15% of available talent in the market for the role. And so that means that statistically, 1 out of 7 candidates is a potential five-star employee. So I think for, small businesses and entrepreneurs where they've been cutting themselves short on missing out on the five-star employees is they interview 1 or 2 candidates and make a choice, or 3 people and make a choice. And statistically, you don't necessarily have a five-star candidate in that 1 out of 4 candidate, or out of those 4 candidates. And so it becomes a numbers game. You want to attract as many high quality applicants as possible so that you can weed out the 1, 2, and 3-star employees and be left with that 5-star employee, that top 15% of available talent in the market.
Okay. So obviously there's, potentially, we're very good here in the UK of talking ourselves into a recession, but obviously with the global crises as they are at the moment, it seems that everybody's heading in that direction. So when it's coming to looking at, certainly within the cost of living crisis, is it always a good idea to, as one of those attractors for business owners, to pay more than the going rate to attract a five-star employee? Is that always the right thing to do?
Yeah, no, you can't buy talent, and you can't throw money at improving someone's performance. And, that's often very common trap, I think, business owners fall into is they're like, well, if I pay them $10,000 more, I'll get $10,000 more worth of effort out of them, or they'll finally get it. And that is just it's such a huge mistake. A 5-star employee is the top 15% of available talent for the given market rate. And so honestly, you want to really pay people where it is in the market. Now, for some of our companies, we pay people kind of right in the middle, especially for like entry-level positions, people straight out of college. And then for other positions, we might pay a little bit towards the higher end of the market, but we don't grossly overpay anyone, because that's really doing a disservice to people, because they start to, if you overpay someone radically, then they start to have this lifestyle that if they were to lose their job with you and need to go find that job somewhere else, they wouldn't be able to find that job for that same amount of pay. So it's a huge, huge mistake to think that you can pay for performance. It's really just about weeding out the 1, 2, and 3-star candidates. And this whole 5-star concept is they're 5-star for the role. Obviously I'd like to think of myself as a 5-star entrepreneur, but if you were to hire me as a bookkeeper, I could get a bookkeeper job tomorrow without a doubt. But let me tell you, I'd be a 1.5-star bookkeeper. I can put the numbers in the right places, this, that, the other, but I wouldn't have the passion for it. I would be okay. It would just be tedious to me. It wouldn't be fun. So people aren't like a 5-star in every role. It's a 5-star for the role that you're looking for. And I think what's really important, especially for entrepreneurs as they're scaling their business and as they're hitting the next 6 figures and then the next 6 figures, is there's some interesting things there, especially when it comes to employees. And one of those things, especially when you're looking at, growing your team to begin with and your first couple of hires, I often find that entrepreneurs typically try to bring on a sparkly rainbow unicorn as their first hire. And it's someone who they want to do marketing, to clean their email box, to do admin services, and maybe do some mail fulfillment too. So it's all of these things, and be the social media manager, etc. And the problem is that it's too much. People can't specialize and be so great at those things. So what I would recommend is instead of trying to find the rainbow sparkly unicorn who just does everything, is to break that job up and to have it be 3 stallions that are working for you. And I think what's interesting right now too, and what's really big in the market that I think again a lot of entrepreneurs are kind of missing out on, even big corporations, is there are a lot of people who favor flexibility over a 9-to-5 job, 5 days a week, 40 hours a week, etc. So my challenge would be to find people who, someone who can do your email inbox and just own it and tee you up on things and all of that. Find a separate person to, focus and specialize on social media. When people have just one job and one task and key responsibilities for that specific mission, and then success metrics associated with what success looks like when you're doing social media for this company, or what success looks like when you're being the administrative assistant or managing and triaging email boxes, etc. Really just is a game changer. And there's a lot of stay-at-home moms who, are looking for, kind of mother's hours, things that they can do between the hours of 9 and 1 when their children are at school. And the funny thing is, there have been countless studies, and I think it's, I want to say it's Norway in Europe, who's experimenting with alternate work schedules and such. But countless studies have been done, and it really comes down to that an individual's productivity is 3.52 hours per day. So whether you employ someone for a 4-hour shift or an 8-hour shift, their ideal likely productivity is only 3.52 hours a day. So, when you think, okay, I've got 8 hours with this person a day, I'm going to load them up and I want them to do all of these things. I want them to wear the social media hat. I want them to wear the email hat. I want them to wear the mail fulfillment hat, etc. You're not going to get 8 hours of productivity out of this rainbow sparkly unicorn. But if you really focus on getting 4 hours of productivity out of people and only hiring people for 4 to 5 hours per day, then you're really knocking it out of the park, and you're being really efficient with the payroll as well.
I'm still trying to get over the fact that there could be a rainbow sparkly unicorn that actually might walk through my door. Do they not? Damn,
Stop
honestly.
looking.
There's so many children now crying into their earphones as they hear this. You've ruined it for so many kids right about now. It's really interesting actually, because you've just touched on productivity. I just want to touch on this before we talk a little bit more about your good self actually. In the fact that, and strangely, I was having a conversation with somebody about this morning, is that one of the things that I felt that could have come out of COVID that potentially hasn't come out of COVID as I'd almost hoped, but in a sort of like roundabout sort of way, I was noticing it, was how much people's productivity went up during COVID when they were told to work from home. And here's my reasoning behind this, was quite simply because normally people were working 9 till 5. They were told to stay at home, but by 2:00 in the afternoon, they were all taking pictures of themselves on Instagram, getting drunk in the back garden on gin or beer. So that means the same amount of work that normally would take them 5 o'clock and now been finished by 2:00. So I was kind of figuring that everybody was far more productive. Have you noticed since obviously rules are relaxing, I'm not quite sure what the rules are where you are right now, have you noticed people's productivity has gone up or gone down, or is pretty much flatly stayed the same?
You know, I think it has, I honestly think it has stayed the same. During COVID, there was just less distractions. And, definitely when you're working from home, you have ideally less distractions. You don't have that water cooler talk. You don't have, the mate in the cubicle next to you to, banter with and such. So, but the other interesting thing too that's come out of COVID is, and that experience that we've had with working from home and not having that commute, is that, that people are wanting more time for themselves. And so, they're willing to bang out the work and work hard. So give it to them. I mean, it's just interesting to me. Most of our hires recently, they're not working 40 hours a week. They can work, we recruited them part-time, and they're really kind of sticking to that part-time. Even people who we've hired as full-time, we're pretty flexible and stuff. And if they're done and they feel like they've gotten their 3 things that they're going to do today done for the day, and they're ready to report that tomorrow, then they clock out, and they're getting paid 36 hours for the week or 35 hours for the week, and I'm delighted with that.
Quite right. So let's talk a little bit about you, okay? Ex-flight attendant.
Yes.
Entrepreneur.
Yes.
How the hell did that happen? Going from there to there. That's a real left field turn.
Well, what's funny is I think about this. So I graduated university, and then decided to kind of have my gap year after graduating university, and so I became a flight attendant. And what's so funny is I went to the interview for a flight attendant, and they hadn't hired, it was American Airlines, they hadn't hired flight attendants in years. And I sat in there, and it was a maybe 5-6 minute conversation with the hiring manager, who was, a flight attendant themselves. And he was just like, okay, well, if you want this job, it's yours. This is the fastest interview I've ever done in my life. And I was like, I flew all the way to Dallas, Texas, and this is a 6-minute conversation, and I have this job.
Oh, that's so pre-COVID, isn't it? That is so pre-COVID, right?
What's funny is I was probably, I was definitely a 5-star flight attendant, in the sky.
Of course, absolutely. It goes without saying, right?
But I wasn't a lifer. And they should have recognized that I would have never been a lifer. They honestly should have never hired me.
Really? Okay.
Isn't that ironic?
Yeah, it is a little bit. So when you left, what made you decide to leave? Then what was what did you end up doing? And then how was you grabbing your first 6 figures in business?
Yeah. So let's see. I had a muffin thrown at me in during service in the air, and I'm just like, this is not for me. There's a lot of sitting around. You're really not. You're only working about, talk about productivity. You're only working about 60 hours a month in the sky, at least at the time for American Airlines. So there was just a lot of off time, and I'm just someone that likes to stay busy. So it wasn't for me, and I had a degree, and so I got a job at an advertising agency in Nashville, Tennessee. And what was interesting there is when I started there were about 65 employees. In less than a year, it had dwindled down to 15 employees. Like, there was talk about a great resignation. It was a mass exodus, and it was really interesting. And so I was like the fourth account executive on a major retailer's account, and they're like, please tell us you're not leaving. Like, you're our fourth person. We're so close to getting this launched. We've already invested all this time and money. Please tell us. And I said, I'm sorry, I can't promise you that. The writing's on the wall. So I worked with them for a bit, and then they're like, well, you get this. We've gotten more done in the 5 weeks we've been working with you. If you do leave, would you consider starting your own agency, and, we'll be your first client? And I'm like, shut the door, really?
Wow. Okay.
So it just so that's the leap that I took. And so at the ripe old age of 25, I started the Maverick Group, which was an advertising and marketing agency in Nashville, and just hit the ground running. My hiring strategies at that point were hire people younger than me. They wouldn't know if I was doing things wrong or right. They would just assume I was doing things right. And I was really lucky with hiring for a bit. I remember one of my hires, I was hiring for an account executive, and there were two lovely young women. They both graduated from my alma mater. So, okay, that's a tie. And it came down to, I picked the one who was in the same sorority as me, even though we weren't in the sorority at the same time. That's real strategic hiring right there. That's
amazing hiring, isn't it? Really, yeah. There we go.
And so I was kind of lucky. Really, people statistically, you can hire. You're 25% successful in hiring a 5-star employee. So 1 out of 4 of your hires is likely a 5-star employee. But it's kind of luck. And then hired more, and then I had to hire. It was someone who I actually went to college with his sister, and then he was fraternity brother. So I'm like checking all these boxes that I thought I had used before. And he was a fraternity brother of one of my employees, and he was like just so toxic, so negative. Was a graphic designer who wasn't open to making any changes for clients. I remember waking up on a Monday morning going, do I have to go into work? Can I call in sick to my own company? Because I just did not want to face another week with him. And, I trudged into the office, and it just, the whole demeanor of the office just went downhill with him. No one liked him. He was just such negativity. And I happened to be very fortunate because actually later that week, this was such a defining moment for me. Later that week, I went to a program called Birthing of Giants at MIT that Vern Harnish put on. And this is like 2004. And I learned top grading there. So Bradford Smart, the A, B, and C player, the things that GE did in their heyday in the 80s and 90s, and recognizing that there are different people, and some people are A, B, C, or even D players, and so I really dove into that discipline and that strategy. And it's really based off of interviewing and spending a lot of time with a candidate and such. And so I really just I got into that, and I just was like, okay. And I was a little bit older now, so I had some more confidence. I was willing to hire people older than me, with a little bit more industry experience. And so that was great. And then, flash forward, at like 10 years or so, and my husband and I are starting some businesses. We've relocated to California, and we decided to open an office in Indiana. And, a lot of things I would do to find people was kind of like a virtual bench, where, you're just identifying people in the wild. And when you have a position open, then you kind of like, you have candidates that you want to target and you want to bring in because you already have had thoughts about them on your virtual bench. And but when we opened an office in Indiana, it just became more of a struggle. I mean, that's like, almost 2,000 miles away from where we live. And so I really then got into, how can I make our hiring process more efficient? How can I do it from a distance? And because top grading is just really more of like a face-to-face process. And so over the last 10 years, it's evolved into what we call the 5-star employee rating system. And, what we're using is we're using things to attract 5-star candidates. We're being strategic about repelling 1, 2, and 3-star candidates. We're using objective assessments. We're really just, making it very objective in terms of the assessment of a candidate. And, I also believe that business owners have to be they have to go all in on their hiring. And you've got to really define exactly what you're looking for, so that you are setting the right ground. I mean, what's happening in the Great Resignation, it's really the Great Escape. I mean, people are not happy in the position. I was talking to someone the other day who had taken a job recently and felt like it was a bait and switch. They were told, oh, our company culture is amazing, it's great, this is what you're going to do. And, 3 weeks into the job, the culture was horrible and not what they said or portrayed. And the job was a bait and switch. They said she was going to do X, Y, Z, and she was doing A, B, C instead. So it's really important that, when you go to hire people, that you really put some thought into what you're looking for, what the expectations are, what is that success going to look like. And the 5-star employee rating system is a good framework for you to do that. And so can I run through the 5 stars?
Of course you can. Absolutely. This time is entirely yours. I'm absolutely loving it. So far, I have learned that my previous experience of hiring people so that I was the most stupid in the room was sort of like really didn't get me very far at all. So no, you carry on. Absolutely.
So the first star in the 5-star employee rating system is making sure that the candidate aligns with your core values. And they're your true core values. They are the 3 to 5 things that are true to you 100% of the time. A lot of businesses have core values, but those core values are really probably more aspirational. They're things that you want to get to and such. But the core values, it really has to be the core values of the owner. And, when you think about relationships that you've been in, whether it's been friend relationships, romantic relationships, etc., typically the parting of ways comes down to you guys really just didn't share the same core values. And so the same thing applies with employees. I mean, if you're wanting to duplicate yourself and clone yourself in your business, then the place you have to start is someone who shares your core values. And it's not just saying, oh, our core values are ownership, relationships, and accountability. It's really defining what you mean by ownership, and accountability or relationships, whatever your core values are. So you really have to define what you mean. I oftentimes, I got an email from someone the other day who, lost a new hire, a recent new hire. And the job said, oh, it's a flexible job. It's a bookkeeping job and it's flexible. And she said that, when they checked in with her and said, hey, what days or times of the week would be good for your supervisor and you to just kind of check in twice a week. And the new hire's response was like, really? That's not being flexible. I'm out of here. And so what's funny is people have different perceptions and definitions of terms. So it's really important as the owner that if you're saying I'm flexible, you need to define what flexibility is, because I'm sure, Mark, your definition of flexibility for your employees is different than my definition of flexibility. And so it's really important to articulate, clarify what your core values are with a statement.
Absolutely. And that's the thing is that, and I love the story about, bait and switch. My partner has just joined an amazing business here in the East Midlands in the UK. And they told her about their core values, what kind of business they were. And it would be fair to say that I think anybody being told what she was being told would have been a little bit skeptical. But do you know what? She was so pleasantly surprised when what they said was actually true. And, she comes home from work now and she is bouncing, absolutely bouncing. She's so passionate about that company because in such a short amount of time that what they said they were going to do, they have done. In fact, they've gone over and above what they said they were going to do. And you know what? You can just see in her that willingness to do more, that willingness to sort of like repay, what could be considered really simple things, but repay that tenfold because actually it's an amazing place to work.
Oh my gosh, that's the epitome of going all in. This employer, when you go all in on your employees, I mean, they pay it back in spades by going all in, typically acting like an owner and just it's this magic relationship. But it really starts by going all in on your recruitment and hiring process and being very specific about what you're looking for, what you're not looking for, and not bringing in the 1 and 2 3-star employees who can, screw it up for you. The second star is we've identified 11 qualities of a 5-star employee. And so there's 11 universal qualities that we find apply to, doesn't matter the role, but these are qualities that represent a 5-star employee who just kind of like it's a bit of the secret DNA. And out of those, there are 2 that are coded green, there are 7 that are coded gray, and there's another 2 that are coded red. And the ones that are red are flexibility and the ability to actively listen. And those are coded red because if someone is not, in the interview, you discover that they're not flexible. I mean, they talk about their former employer and their former, what they used to do and such. And they talk about how, the employer, wanted them to do this and they wanted them to work, Saturday once a month and this, that, the other. And, they're just like, screw that. That's not what I'm here for. And that's not what I was hired to do. I mean, red flags. That's not a flexible employee. And those are things that you're likely not going to change in an individual. And the same thing with active listening. I was interviewing a candidate in March and we were 3 minutes into the interview and she's talking, but she's not answering my questions. And so I'm like, well, let me ask a real simple question here. And, I asked a couple of simple questions. And again, she just had this agenda. She was just talking and not answering my questions. And so at the 5-minute mark, I said, you know what? I just don't think that this is going to be a good fit. And, thank you so much for your time and for your application. And we wish you the best. And that was it. Because I knew I need people who can listen and understand and take the ball and run with it. So those are the 11 qualities of a 5-star employee. And then we move on to the 3rd star, which is aptitudes and skills. And I think that this is, oh my goodness. I mean, all of them are so important, but I think if you're not testing your candidates in some form or fashion on the skills that you need for the role, then shame on you. Because it doesn't matter what people say, it matters what they do. And, for so many things, people just think, well, I can fake it till I make it. Or if I could just get my foot in the door, then I can, do this instead. Because they'll want me to do this, even though they're hiring for Y. I'm going to do B for them. And so it's really, really important that you use tests that exist. I mean, a simple typing test, just whatever, or create tests. So, in some of our businesses, we use, kind of industry tests. And then for other roles, we've designed tests that, are looking for the skills that we actually need and talents we need in the candidate. So that's the 3rd star. And then the fourth star is success metrics. So, you've got this like lengthy legalese job description that has everything in it. But in your job posting, you want to be short, you want to be sweet, you want to stand out from the crowd. You don't want to have this vanilla job posting that's just like everyone else's. And one thing, again, is important in this recruitment process is you want to attract the 5-star candidates and repel the 1, 2, and 3-star candidates. So in your job posting, you should have 3 to 5 key responsibilities for the role. And then you need to talk about what the success metrics are for that role. What does success look like for this key responsibility? And that success metrics should be quantified with numbers or dollar signs. So, so many times these job postings say, oh, we were looking for a sales manager who has excellent communication skills.
Do you know what? I am so pleased you're talking about this, because I just laugh at some job postings just on the basis that I've got an MBA. I don't even understand them. I mean, honestly, how can anybody understand that? It's almost like a whole different language where people seem to be trying to outdo each other for how complicated or self-important they can try and make a job.
Yeah. So, if you need excellent communication skills from a sales manager, I mean, what does that mean? Does that mean that you need them to, close 5 deals a week? I mean, that would demonstrate that they have excellent communication skills, right? So you want to quantify just narrow it down to 3 to 5 key responsibilities. What are they going to need to do to drive revenue in the business, and produce a return on their salary? And then, how are you measuring it? What's the number that is associated with like drawing that line? If you hit 50, then that's success. We have claims examiners. They process long-term care claims here in the States. And, the success metrics for them are you need to hit 98% financial accuracy, 95% procedural accuracy, and you need to do 42 claims per day. I mean, if you looked at any other claims examiner job postings out there, there's no metrics. There's nothing associated with what success looks like in their job postings. So you want to get real clear, real specific, because that's going to attract the person who I love to gamify what I do. I love to, understand what it takes to be successful and know where the bar is set, and I'll hit it, or I'll exceed it. And then the 5th star in the 5-star employee rating system is return on payroll. So what you want, and this kind of gets into, when do you bring on new employees and such too, is you want the salary to produce a minimum of a 3x return on revenue. So we've got a spreadsheet that can help calculate this and such. But, very simply, if you've got 2 employees who are making $50,000 a year each, then each of them should be, producing a $150,000, contribution to total revenue, total sales. So 2 employees, 50,000, that would be a company that's doing at least $300,000 a year is where you want to get your employees. And then this comes back to, kind of what is the sweet spot in terms of pay and such. But, the funny thing about 5-star employees versus 1, 2, and 3-star employees is that one 5-star employee does the work of 2 or 3 1, 2, or 3-star employees. So, you're paying a 3-star employee $50,000. You're paying a 2-star employee $50,000. Well, it's going to take a 2-star to 3-star employee that you're paying a total of $100,000 to do the work of what one 5-star employee would do for $50,000. So, talk about a buzzkill on your profitability. When you have 1, 2, and 3-star employees on your payroll, I mean, it's costing you your profitability.
Mate, I absolutely love this. There's so much gold in this. There really, really is. Danielle, we're coming to an end. but I've had so much fun, and genuinely, it's such a great and refreshing way at looking at hiring people. Like I said earlier on the podcast, especially as people who are looking for their next six figures or even the first six figures, there's really no handbook. There are no sort of like standard questions that will get you through, and everybody is looking for somebody different. Where can people find you? Where can people find out more about you, your company, how they can hire people, and how you can help them hire people?
Yeah. So, you can, I'd love to link in with you. So follow me on LinkedIn or connect with me on LinkedIn, Danielle Mulvey, M-U-L, V as in Victor, E-Y on LinkedIn. And then you can go to 5staremployees.com, and we are happy to take you through the 5-star employee rating system and really guide you on how you customize it to yourself and really start to stand out in the sea of employers out there.
Mate, absolutely spot on. And I love the fact that you were talking about people posting. I'm seeing lots of postings at the moment over here in the UK. Some of them make perfect sense. Some of them just gobbledygook. I have no idea who they're trying to employ. And probably they haven't either. But exactly. It looks really good because they've basically used a thesaurus to write it. So well done them. All the links to Danielle and all her stuff are going to be in the show notes. Danielle, thank you so much for getting up so early in the morning to come and do this with us. Really do appreciate it. We'll see you again really soon.
Yeah, cheers to going all in.
Wasn't she fantastic? All the way from the USA, ridiculous o'clock in the morning, to come and talk to you guys about how hiring the right employee, the 5-star employee, can help you get your first, your next, and your best 6 figures into your business. Now, if you want to find out more about Danielle, just go and have a look at the links in all the show notes. She's there. Go and link up with her, go and connect with her, and find out how you can hire that employee. So if you want your first, your next, or your best 6 figures, please go to my website, www.marcford.uk, and go and click on the link, and it will take you to a lovely page where you can drop a roadmap for free, ladies and gentlemen, about getting your next 6 figures into your business. If you want to follow me, please, all the links are in the show notes. It has been a pleasure once again. Go out, be brilliant, sell a whole heap of stuff, and here's to your next 6 figures in business.